Hello, welcome. I hope you're having a enjoyable new year. Perhaps you're looking at this from some point later on in the year, in which case it should be pretty easy just to kind of navigate the different sections for the different periods, which you're talking about different astrological events through the year of 2026. Welcome to this crystal cave, which is all very pleasant. And yeah, today I'm going to be talking about the key um, aspects and astrological events, in my opinion, during this year, and hopefully some kind of tips which will help to use the energies um, uh, for whatever purpose you like. But I'm obviously aiming for the kind of more pleasant, kind of light purposes. Um, I'd just like to briefly just summarize the year ahead before looking at it in more depth. So the start of the year is extremely quiet. It's a good time to rest, take it easy, carry on releasing things until late January when it's actually there's a new moon on the 18th of January, which in Capricorn, which is very much about making plans for the foreseeable future, long-term plans, even a few years ahead. But what I want to focus on mostly in this video is what happens in from the middle of February onwards. Because as I'll go into more depth later on, there's a solar eclipse, and also there's at the solar eclipse that's the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology. So it's a very powerful, energetic energy for the whole year ahead, which is compounded by Neptune having fully moved into fire sign Aries and Saturn moving into Aries as well. So this is really a key period, the middle to the end of February, for initiating and starting off the manifestations that we've dreamed of, which could be particularly artistic endeavors, mystical endeavors, anything that's we really at heart we've dreamed of um, uh, experiencing, we'll get a huge shot in the arm because it really is a kind of initiating, pioneering energy from the second half of February onwards, which goes through the year, and in fact, honestly, for the rest of our lives. Because yeah, through this year, the initiating energy of Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, which is his ruler is the planet Mars. It's kind of like action man, kind of warrior figure. And Mars spends the rest of the year meeting various of the big hitters, big kind of planets. Like in April, Mars meets Neptune and then Saturn, and gets kind of like guidance on what actions to take to, bring about kind of manifest, build the kind of new light paradigm. And then later on meets Uranus and finally meets Jupiter to expand these kind of genius ideas. Now, there are a few other things I'll talk about later on that are going on this year, like Chiron, which is the key asteroid for changing from a kind of familiar life of present day to the kind of new kind of uh, future that we're kind of creating all the time. Moves into Chiron, moves into Taurus, sorry, the Earth sign for briefly. In the kind of the second half of the year, around June, moves in there, late June. So we're kind of the way that we change our life becomes less kind of about initiating things as it has been with Aries and more about connection to kind of Gaia and our kind of traditions and what they mean. And honestly, you might think the first half of the year is pretty fiery and pretty powerful and full of energy and dynamic, but it only increases in the second half when Jupiter moves into fire sign Leo as well, which works together with Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius, who's encouraging us to be our own authority and not take anything on trust. Not take anything that anyone says for granted, not just check everything, truth in it for ourselves. So it's a very dynamic year ahead. This is not like the years that we've had in previous years, recent years. There's an awful lot going on. Two of the things I'll quickly mention before going into this in more detail. The North Node, which is things that from things that we're aiming towards, moves towards Aquarius towards the middle of the year as well, staying there for quite a while until March 2028. So this kind of means that we're moving towards settling on a future, the future that we're aiming for, technological breakthroughs, seeing the impact of the Saturn in Aquarius kind of years at the start of this decade with impact of like this the kind of mad scientists, so-called COVID injections and lockdowns and all that kind of lunacy. And the final big thing I wanted to mention at the end of the year is the Venus retrograde, which is it's in the kind of start of Scorpio, second half of Libra, which is kind of path of fire, and it works together with a kind of some kind of things being revealed in early October, which causes the goddess of love, Venus herself, to do a kind of rethink, have a lot of change of heart, like do some kind of deep soul searching. She kind of goes retrograde through the underworld uh, in between September and December. So that's the overall brief summary of the year ahead. But I'd like to go into it in more detail, and yeah, we'll see a bit more about what appears to be going on. And remember, this is just my interpretation, and these things are not fixed, of course. These are just energies, celestial energies that you can choose whether you want to use them or not, and how you want to use them. I'm just yeah, taking a look from my perspective. So, as I say, this is um, the year of the fiery horse in Chinese astrology from mid-February onwards, and I feel that so many things will be initiated this year. We have so much opportunity to start new things, having spent a long time now, really, I would say, at least 3 years with Saturn in Pisces, releasing and processing, witnessing the kind of crumbling of the old. And even like for the last 15 years, while Neptune's been in Pisces, we've been witnessing this kind of dissolution of so-called realities into the shimmering sea, as it were. And now we're really seeing um, new, um, new, wild and free energies coming in and being brought in by ourselves. It's going to be a very action-packed year, but obviously it's wise to, not act without thinking, which is perhaps something that might be all too easy in the year ahead. And moving towards concentrating on the future that we are building. Of course, with Pluto in Aquarius, this has been a big factor recently, but it becomes even bigger. So, as I say, the fiery horse year, horses are quite fiery on their own. So, this is extremely fiery, double fire, and well, it could be very lively. Could be big, kind of passionate kind of decisions, fearless courage shown, stepping away from tradition. I mean, it's all too easy just to kind of burn the past for no reason. I mean, it's very careful to avoid these things. I mean, the last fire horse year was 1966, which is obviously when Mao Zedong's Red Guards, fiery guards, eliminated masses of Chinese culture, laying the foundations for the kind of Chinese police state that we see today. And very similar kind of energies were around the world in places like the UK, where traditions were ripped apart um, as part of uh, the hijacking, I would say, of the light people at that point. Nevertheless, it could be an extremely creative time. I mean, you think of 1966, that's when Star Trek began, which, some might say is a cover for a kind of fake space program. But on the other hand, it was quite adventurous and cutting edge, kind of interesting adventure. And before that, in 1906, previous Firehorse energy to the year to that, there were massive kind of technological things happening, like new cars like the Rolls-Royce, start cinema, and like new creative art forms. So there's lots of technological development, creative cultural events, and very much a kind of ripping away of the old. You can even go prior to that in 1846, like expeditions around the Earth, saxophone invention. Again, a kind of feature on sporting kind of codification of games such as baseball. But as I say, in view of the extreme kind of energies of the year ahead, I would definitely recommend resting up and kind of taking it easy and building up your strength. Shedding a few more skins towards the end of the year of the snake before the middle of February. Now, there is one thing happening before the middle of February, which to me is worth mentioning. On 18th of January, the new moon at 28 Capricorn. So this is the last new moon for centuries, actually, that is going to be conjunct Pluto. Even though Pluto is in Aquarius, it's very close to the new moon. So this is still a last kind of Capricornian opportunity to make big kind of transformative new starts. Lots of energy there with Mercury and Mars helping us to communicate and take action. It's Venus in Aquarius, suggesting kind of new, kind of groundbreaking artistic works or, relationships or fashion, perhaps. So, yeah, there's a lot. This is a lot going on, and it could be transformative uh, societal opportunities that could be there. Our overall mission, kind of looking at what we would like to see in the future as our kind of legacy, like uh, or next few years, or however long we we could see ourselves in the future. Capricorn is very much about taking a long-term view, and Pluto especially. So Capricorn very much about building kind of slowly and deliberately, but also it can be a bit of a daredevil. So it might be some kind of seemingly outrageous kind of plans that we'd like to put into place, that we'd like to start at that time. Another thing I'd like to quickly mention, there is a Venus star point on the 6th of January at 15 degrees Capricorn, which is a great opportunity to make key decisions. I would say um, career-based and financially based, perhaps making key investments with Venus and Capricorn for assets, but also, of course, it's relevant to relationship decisions and intents. Now, uh, possibly unnoticed, but it's a slight indication of the fiery kind of year ahead begins with Neptune entering Aries on the 26th of January. He was there last year from March until October, so you might have noticed things which you dreamed of starting off. You were looking at possibly trying things out, and you weren't quite sure. You tried a few things out, But now Neptune will stay in Aries until 2039. So his long kind of period of helping us to release old kind of dissonant kind of belief systems in Pisces and releasing um, old programs and fears, for example, is now largely done, and we're kind of got a clean slate now to head off on adventures, pioneering adventures, going through the wilderness. I mean, previous time Neptune was here, it was a long time ago, in 1860s, when it was the American Civil War and the kind of formation of the USA as we see it today, and the American dream, of course, and all kinds of developments occurred at that time. So I would say over the next like 14 years, especially 13, 13 years or so, we're looking at starting off a whole new dream, whole new kind of cycle of manifestations, really getting a lot clearer on what it means to embody uh, kind of highest frequency with um, Neptune in the first sign, Aries, which is very physical. I might be looking at how we communicate with our body, how to expand um, lifespan, uh, looking through the delusions around physical health, and really um, being very careful to um, kind of imagine and look to manifest a totally healthy, fit, and strong physical body, which in which disease would be a thing of the past. Also, with Neptune in Aries, looking at our personal identity, and who are we really, and getting a clearer idea on transcending perhaps our limited perspective on our identity. Yeah, this will all be extremely innovatory, if I can manage to say that word, and showing great visionary kind of qualities for this new cycle. Uh, I would say right now with Aries and all the fire elements, uh, it's important to fundamentally disagree and with any kind of conflict or war-based energies with all this Aries energy and fire energy through the year. It could be idealistic folk heroes such as Robin Hood and these kind of people who have a kind of kind of almost mythic identity uh, being present, um, while also remembering, of course, not to give our power away and try to and do things ourselves, build things ourselves. Another thing with Neptune and Aries to disagree with would be formation of any new dissonant belief systems. However, there could also be new artistic models, as I say, like photography was um, brought about during previous Neptune Aries cycle. So things in digital art, for example, or new forms of art that we can't even imagine right now. Uh, we might be seeing through delusions around current scientific awareness, such as periodic table was formulated in the previous Neptune Aries cycle. So this could be something that we would just be looking at and thinking this is gibberish, really. What is the real state of play with elements and the periodic table? With Neptune and Aries, also it could be a renewed interest in the so-called paranormal, which might be seen as more normal and natural, such as ghost kind of adventures and things like that. Of course, Aries is masculine sign, and there's lots of masculine astrological energies this year. So compassionate and higher frequency, kind of more light sourced, um, visions of masculinity being embodied. There's a strong kind of energies for this. Kind of the wise kind of elder who's also in perfect physical health. Now, Saturn will move back into Aries from 14 February until 2028. So again, Saturn was there last year, um, May till September. So this is Saturn will kind of see the kind of inspiration Neptune has brought about and offers us the opportunity to build something long-lasting through this inspiration, kind of a long-term kind of fire built from the fire that was started with Neptune in Aries. It is a great period for establishing kind of lifelong exercise programs, um, trying to temper our own egotistic kind of tendencies, being perhaps slightly um, less self-important. Hard work and discipline action is key here, which is focused perhaps on a few kind of activities done in depth rather than spreading ourselves too thin. Too thin. New leaders. So we might kind of get clearer on areas like perhaps where our pride or our impulsiveness have led to us being more isolated. Now, on the 20th of February, this is, you know, the most significant aspect astrologically of the year, and definitely one of the most important this decade, um, apart from the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January 2020, which we're still seeing the effects of. So Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 degrees at the first degree of the zodiac. This is these energies have been available for a while, certainly last year, possibly a little bit before that, but definitely last year in 2025, and will remain active until the start of 2027. So Saturn, the kind of Lord of Time here, has spent a lot of time in Pisces attempting to build temporary structures just to help us kind of um, uh, make use of the incredible mystical awareness of Pisces, um, which of course cannot last because Pisces is the ocean, sand, like very temporary kind of structures, which will be obviously dismantled by the ocean, as we go. But still, we've kind of released a lot of things that were unhelpful, toxic kind of things. And now Saturn moves together with Neptune, and the energies are conducive for creating a completely new star, basically. Um, a lot of people have kind of fallen off their pedestals after Saturn has gone through Pisces and kind of clarified exactly who they are in more detail. Anyway, this could continue with Saturn working together with Neptune here, but what we're doing basically is we've got the opportunity, and we're strongly encouraged to take our dreams and ideals and manifestations much more seriously. Um, not kind of messing around, not wasting our time with things that seem important, that are actually not having any effect. Effective manifestation of mystical ideals, which are more realistic, more realistic plans, more realistic goals. There could be new kind of mystical artistic starts. So we really was kind of dreaming of and taking steps towards new, more realistic quests. Yeah, we really are starting afresh. What has happened in the past is kind of meaningless in a lot of the cases in these energies, particularly if it's based on a tissue of lies built up carefully over about 160 years, or even longer, should we say. So a lot of so-called heroic figures could be seen um, in their true nature, as kind of created heroes, I think, as somebody said, which, not who we think they are, just kind of people who've been set up, as models for people to copy, who are, not particularly people anybody in their right mind would even consider copying if they were aware of who that kind of person was. See kind of many, many rock stars, for example. So Saturn um, is very practical, very realistic, will help us to um, realize kind of transcending concepts and ideas and dreams and imaginations into some kind of physical reality um, and really set it so it's a little bit more feasible to experience that in our day-to-day life. Helping us to work with Pluto and Aquarius to blow apart, fake science, such as the whole virus myths, for example, and kind of pioneering medical treatments, such as people like Dr. Tom Cowan, can be um, get a new kind of new wind, lots of energy available for these kind of things that are beginning, a new and more accurate understanding that's beginning. I mean, last time Saturn and Neptune met, it was like 1989, and that's when communist Soviet Union was, in free fall, crumbling. So it's a little bit like that, only much more so, I would say. Now we're still in February, which is a hell of a powerful month. As I say, the Ring of Fire new moon solar eclipse, 28 Aquarius, future focused Aquarius, where the wild kind of passionate and fearless energies of the year of the fire horse begins. So we really suddenly get a whole new set of surprising things that we become aware of with Uranus squaring this eclipse from Taurus. So Uranus in Taurus is an interesting situation where previously conservative and perhaps even dull people, such as farmers and uh, traditional kind of landowners, for example, suddenly became the rebels, while Uranus was in Taurus for the last 7 or 8 years, well, 7 years or so, I think. Yeah, 6 or 7 years, 7 or 8, roughly, 8 years. And so we're getting a whole new focus in the eclipse on the 17th of February in Aquarius on how to accommodate innovative and future kind of future serving ideas. So we're looking at our kind of the future that we dream of and what kind of information comes in when we see ourselves in that ideal future. So, for example, with Uranus in the Earth sign Taurus, this could feature some kind of development over the 6 months following the 17th of February eclipse around our understanding of the larger Gaia. So what kind of things do we not understand about our so-called planet? What about the landmass, how big it is, our atmosphere, perhaps other areas beyond the land masses that we are aware of, um, generally much more information um, can come through in this period of time from February to the next eclipse after that, which would be in August. And then there is another eclipse on the 3rd of March, a partial full moon lunar eclipse. So this is related to things that began in early September 2024. So what kind of things did we start our kind of organizational systems? But at this point, the full moon lunar eclipse is a releasing eclipse. So this is the South Node is at 8 Virgo, and we get a lot of information about, we might get a lot of insights about, for example, dysfunctional things related to our job, related to what we do every day. Perhaps we have some kind of healthcare kind of routines, people we see, or products we use, or techniques we use. We might kind of get a bit clearer about which ones are not really helping us, which ones are not so effective. Now, in eclipse periods, it's it's not so much a time to take action, but more about things that we become aware of, or we might kind of experience a kind of course correction. Suddenly, we might, for example, get more awareness of our kind of friendship groups. We might kind of suddenly feel like we need to spend more time uh, connecting to our community. With Aquarius, this is seems to me to be related to the ongoing awakening of uh, larger communities, which is definitely definitely going on with some kind of shocking news, um, kind of coming out for a lot of people, which maybe to some of us might not be so much of a surprise. And Aquarius helps us to step away from um, like inherited kind of ideas and thinking that's no longer relevant, but kind of starting so-called unconventional kind of practices. Yeah, there was a similar Aquarian eclipse in February 2018, and also February 1999. So you might want to look at those years, February 2018, February 1999, and see what occurred then. Should also mention Mercury's retrograde in Pisces during part of this eclipse, indicating that we're uh, reviewing our old messages and perhaps mystical insights. It's a great period for working on and reviewing and revising artistic projects. And with Mercury retrograding in this period of in this section of Pisces, that indicates we might be getting some realizations and insights relating to the long kind of Saturn in Pisces transit over the last few years and the Neptune in Pisces transit over the last 15 years during this period. And then Mars will um, reach the North Node, which is still in Pisces during this time. It's on the 13th of March. So just indicates that we can expect almost, it seems like fated actions or events uh, in the middle of March related to the things that we're releasing or insights that we've picked up while Mercury was retrograde in Pisces. it'll be interesting to see how that energy is used. Now, we've had an aspect over the last year. It's called Chiron, the kind of the healer, the kind of the person who's like the mentor who helps us to kind of move between an old paradigm and the new reality. So the old paradigm being Saturn energies, and the new paradigm being the Uranus future form. Conjunct Eris. Eris is very disruptive, and it will just because she feels whenever Eris feels that she is not being herself or she's not being fully appreciated, she can disrupt things until the status quo is resolved. Chiron is kind of a bit like the kind of wise old man figure, such as Obi-Wan Kenobi in fairy tales. So this is helping us. This has offered us an opportunity since last July, in particular, uh, to um, make changes that have been quite disruptive, to be honest, to our lives. Um, just eliminating connections that are no longer helpful, being more of ourselves, listening to our body more. So it's going to have different effects depending on which side of the splits someone is. But over this period, it appears that the disruptive effects of the physical body of um, mad scientists, kind of injections and cloud spraying and all kinds of poisons, are becoming clearer and clearer, and impossible to ignore for a lot of people. And this in this period, it's kind of set um, uh, over the last year and this year what's actually happened physically to a lot of people. I mean, even billions of people who would never think of such things as, say, the light paradigm or uh, the larger Earth are kind of have been so badly affected by these kind of things, these lies, that even these people will be getting a sense that things are not quite as they seem. Um, and obviously, it's wise not to get involved in kind of savior patterns or being feeling victimized uh, or such similar things regarding these developments. Always remembering, of course, that wherever we focus our anger on, we're simply kind of embedding it more firmly in place. Other disruptive things that might become clear, such as the impact of Wi-Fi on the physical body, and being careful, perhaps to find routers where you can turn off the Wi-Fi and transferring to wired Ethernet internet, which is obviously much better than living in a soup of electromagnetic fields that this kind of dismantle um, and disrupt the body. Also, becoming aware of our physical body's true nature and its true abilities, its magical abilities, its multidimensional nature, the body's trajectory, all these kind of things like this could be disruptive, yet more accurate information that can come about in these energies. That's the 19th of March, the Chiron conjunct Eris 25 Aries. And this is another Aries emphasized aspect, which is again fire sign, again pioneering. So again, offering the potential energy for pioneering, but very disruptive um, uh, potential energy that can be used, towards building and moving towards the a light paradigm, or perhaps being that, um, rather than attempting to go to it as somewhere else. But physically seeing ourselves as being there and having that reality. Now, as I say, the ruling planet of Aries, which is so dominant, so prevalent this year, is Mars, and Mars goes through the year meeting a lot of the big hitters, Neptune in April, and then Saturn in April, and then Eris, disruptive Eris in May, then Chiron, the kind of healer, kind of guide to shifting our reality, and just after that, 17th of May. And then the kind of genius rebel Uranus, who has some key communication, which we'll talk about later, while in Gemini. Gemini, very communicative, very much focused on um, spreading messages, particularly from Pluto, who is talking to a lot, has a lot of powerful secrets there. But also Mars, action man, the warrior, meets Jupiter uh, uh, in Leo, which is a very powerful and expansive kind of masculine energy as well, kind of regal energy there. So, so yeah, as I say, the ruling planet of Aries, um, it gets a lot of advice, a lot of useful information, and activates a lot of things this year. Activates our dreams with Neptune, activates our mystical activities, make sure they're in integrity, make sure we're in alignment with our highest frequency, resonant frequency, hopefully that's as high as possible. And then with Saturn, Lord of Time, in April again, checks the long-term impact of our actions and how practical they are. And then with Aries is kind of might make pretty disruptive and possibly painful kind of moves in May, middle of May. And as I say, is meets the rebel in July, Uranus, and it could be kind of unpredictable what happens in was it when is it in July for what we've done there? That's sometime. I'll just get rid of that. So yeah, that could be quite a bit kind of unexpected, kind of summer with all these things happening. Could be kind of dynamic forward movement, or people suddenly just making sudden changes, breaking for kind of freedom, heading off on their motorbike into the horizon. Um, and with all of this helpful ideas and tips, in November, Mars encourages to expand our movements and move forward dramatically. So a lot of things around us can be crumbling, but within our own lives, we can take inspired action through the year, really. It's extremely positive energies for dynamic kind of new creative force. And Mars, of course, has a 2-year cycle. So we'll be coming back to check all these things 2028. So speaking of the eccentric genius Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, who's so well starred now, particularly with Pluto in Aquarius, and soon all these eclipses that are starting in the Leo Aquarius area. So basically, Gemini is extremely chatty, extremely keen on learning new things. Gemini is very good at making short trips, loves kind of anything different, anything kind of slightly full of novelty. So it seems to me that it's going to be impossible to stop people talking under these energies. I mean, I'm just looking at this. I'm like, all the technology and everything is going to make it very easy for people to find ways of communicating with other people. Uranus was in Gemini last year, July to November. So we can see kind of things like, especially the friendly AIs that are kind of um, coming in, and use of AI in general becoming much more expansive, and this kind of expanding to all kinds of um, gadgets using AI. And so we had quite a period, really, with, as I say, farmers and various conservative types being unlikely rebels while Uranus was in Taurus. So kind of seeing like court jesters just telling it how it is without fear or favor. Uranus in Gemini is talking to another air sign, a planet and another air sign, Pluto in Aquarius. So lots of powerful information is being talked about widely, really. You think of like official secrets, like perhaps technological secrets, like um, is nuclear power real? Are nuclear bombs real? And a lot of people just chatting about this as like a daily thing. Like, so, have you seen what has been debunked now? Or what kind of things are not true? And it becomes kind of quite common knowledge, I would say, in these like 7 years ahead. So obviously there'd be a lot of time saved as well with all these gadgets and use of technology. So be a lot of and a lot of independent people trying to make things happen on their computer, like making their own films on their PC, or making Second Life films and Second Life communities where people can kind of just chat and play different roles and see what kind of uh, new kind of ways of spreading news through all of these means as well. New ways of uh, making technology work. I mean, for example, I'm sure they promised flying cars in Back to the Future in the mid 80s. But this is the kind of aspect where that kind of thing is more likely astrologically. I would strongly suggest a kind of independent um, education becoming normalized, where the right through across the board, the whole kind of way of learning in schools and how it's kind of not really helping people develop mind, and is more geared towards conformist kind of creating of worker drones, and generally many more people moving towards home education or creating their own forms of early education, and also people um, banding together to study things on their own and come to their own conclusions more about, the nature of things such as historical events or literature, no longer kind of following kind of top-down kind of views of reality and stories and culture in general. In fact, you can even imagine a situation where the um, apparent human-created UFOs um, becoming used by more and more people, or certainly more awareness of these things and these forms of transportation becoming more known, more accessible. It's difficult to see how major organizations like such as the BBC could survive in this kind of these kind of Uranus Gemini energies, and various state-controlled broadcasting programming organizations just be dwindling rapidly now, and this kind of energies could just vanish. Yeah, and also new means of transportation in that local area are appearing. So the previous times Uranus was in Gemini. It was 1941 to 1948, where there was a whole load more technological development, of course, in the Second World War and planes, and in particular, and finding ways of such as radar to become aware of what was where planes were. And before that, in the middle of the 19th century, in the period where trains were taking over from canals and, well, anyway, railways and steam trains were much more prevalent and became um, uh, expanded very much in the UK. And in June, a big thing is the key to shifting our life script moves into Taurus for 3 months. There's a short kind of recce to return there from next April. So looking at how we can perhaps get more connected to our planet and how we can understand more about our planet. I mean, a key group I'm involved in this area would be the Guild of Gaia, which is looking at ways to feel more unified and work together with our spirit of our planet, Gaia, for more resonant life, and also looking at the multiverse and the other versions of Gaia, for example, such as uh, the version of Gaia where there's the fairy world and unicorns and dragons, and connecting to other um, versions of Gaia in multiple realities that are resonant and making connections that can be helpful for us and interesting and enjoyable. So Chiron, of course, in Taurus is extremely helpful for making huge changes to our personal and collective wealth. Um, uh, Taurus is very much focused on resources, and financial resources are included in that. But also, Chiron can help us if we use it in Taurus to become more aware of our own intrinsic value and how powerful and special that we are, and our works helps us to work in tune with our environment as to create what we wish. So it's extremely helpful for all of these things, and also physical pleasure is another thing for Taurus. So it could be a lot of healing that goes on in these areas that we can explore, particularly during these energies. Now, there's another fire uh, sign, Leo, the fixed fire sign, which helps to solidify uh, the intrepid kind of adventurous energies of Aries, which are so prevalent through the whole year, and also further reinforces the fire horse energies of the year. Sky god, benevolent, lucky. Jupiter moves into regal Leo, king and queen, I should say. Really, let's just um, let's just put that in there. So there may be expansion of leadership where, you know, is possible here, but it's very important to be careful with Jupiter not to go too far, not to not to kind of think that we're all powerful, and try to just stay in integrity, and really we're not talking necessarily about genuine royalty here, or although you might notice interesting things with, say, the King of England and the UK, I should say, because there's no such thing as the King of England, hasn't been for hundreds of years. It's the UK. But there is some useful energy here to focus on being sovereign in our own lives, making our own decisions, um, being aware of our own agreements and consciously um, disagreeing and agreeing with things in our lives. It relates very much to Black Moon Lilith, who's in a long transit in Sagittarius. I would recommend looking at a lady called the Sky Priestess, who talks about this a lot. But Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius, uh, to my understanding, is about not taking anyone else's word for it, kind of truthing things for ourselves. So anyway, with Jupiter in Leo for about a year there. Jupiter usually stays a year in a sign. Focusing on, enjoyment, connecting to our heart, enthusiasm, childlike sense of fun is what we want to. How can we find ways to express our joy? How can we find ways to perhaps acting, singing? Where can we seek applause? Yeah, it's very kind of romantic and playful energies. It's kind of fun times, really, with Jupiter in Leo's very enjoyable sign for Jupiter to play in. Um, so as I say, there's all these planets in fire signs and these asteroids as well. So there's lots of dynamism, confidence, energy. And then now that Jupiter has moved uh, into Leo, there's an awful lot of planets and asteroids in fire signs and air signs. These are all masculine signs. After a long period, really, with feminine signs like Pluto was in Capricorn for uh, ages and ages since 2008 to um, uh, middle of this decade. And Neptune was in Pisces for like 14, 15 years. So we've had a long period of female energy in the most powerful planets, long in the slow moving signs. So it's masculine energies here. So it's in an astrological sense, this means masculine energies. It's not necessarily male or female people. But these energies are available for women and men to access much more easily, I would suggest, such as technological breakthroughs, mental activity, uh, dynamic endeavors, lots of energy. And suffice to say, as I say, we're not going to be in Kansas much longer with all this energy and around new things and moving forward. So suddenly kind of accessing our kind of heart and soul and our kind of like divine kind of energies, source, nobility, dignity, and being generous. These are all very much Leo uh, things. It's rare as well for planets in fire and air to align so harmoniously. So it's perfect energies for, yeah, as I say, technological breakthroughs. And extremely powerful energies for um, establishing beginnings of kind of a more light kind of paradigm on what we call Earth. At the same time, in early July, well, 20th of July, I should say, Jupiter will oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So there can be a kind of push and pull between the individual and the community, playfulness and more objectivity and seriousness, leadership versus committees. It's kind of, yeah, switching between those things and, being aware of the value of these perspectives. Yeah, now, uh, the North Node in late July moves into Aquarius as well. So that's another um, uh, area that's moved into a more kind of air sign, kind of masculine energy there, until March 2028. So to me, this seems to relate to um, Saturn's journey through Aquarius from 2020 to 2023. So the impact of the lunacy of lockdowns and so-called COVID injections, and also the communities such as online communities or physical communities that sprang up around this period. All these things um, and their impact on people's consciousness and the decisions made in that period and the decisions made now with Pluto moving through Aquarius as well. It becomes a lot clearer. It becomes a lot clearer, like how um, different paradigms are now living in different realities, very different realities. How there's the light paradigm, and then there's the people who the light dark paradigm, with people preferring just to get involved in arguments and living in reduced physical health. It's going to be, I would say, a real key period where that becomes much clearer. So, as I just said, uh, Leo and Aquarius are opposing energies, but it'd be important while Jupiter's in Leo and the North Node's in Aquarius to be aware of the value of both perspectives. So you can look through the Aquarian area, looking at our future and seeing what kind of things we're creating with our current activities, and whether we want to change that future or whether we want to adjust things slightly. Because with the North Node, it's more things that we've created up to now rather than uh, necessarily the changes that we make with the planets are involved. But still, these energies encourage stepping away from pointless traditions to find new ways that are more resonant for ourselves of living. Technological breakthroughs, as I say, more objective view of and experiments with what we call reality, and working generally more from a group perspective rather than the Leo kind of individual perspective, more collaborative uh, and more collaborative manifestations. I mean, not to say that um, either of those are necessarily like wrong or anything, but they're just the Leo energies and the Aquarian energies are both useful depending on the situation. Now, we also have in August the August more eclipses, of course. There's a total solar eclipse at 20 degrees Leo, which is another fire sign focus, where obviously the South Node is in Leo now, which is helping us to more release things that are like egotistical issues or unnecessary kind of attempts at leadership, perhaps. But here it's quite far away from the South Node. It's at 20 degrees Leo, which is, and the North Node has only just moved into the end of Aquarius. So, so you might find um, you might find here with this first eclipse in Leo on the 12th of August, that you got kind of suddenly it's kind of clear where you could have more joy in your life. Where could you be more creative and playful? Where could you spend time romancing somebody? Could you find time playing more games? What kind of what kind of opportunities do you see in these kind of new Aries energies of new pioneering efforts to lead the way yourself into a kind of higher frequency um, paradigm? I mean, the previous eclipse was there August 2018. August 1999, and even in October 1980. So it's, yeah, not kind of too common eclipses at this point. But the last one was only 7 years ago. So this is quite recent, really. So you should be able to think of things that started then in that period, and what kind of things would you like to start kind of on the same lines, perhaps? But now that we've got more focus astrologically on the new kind of paradigm with all this Aries energy, how could you kind of do that, but taking advantage of the new things that have come about this year? And all of this is kind of quite helpful after many years, as I say, of Jupiter being in signs that are more focused on emotions and practicalities, to focus on enjoyment and pleasure. This eclipse is especially useful for that increased Leo focus in our life. Now, at the end of August, this very interesting eclipse is a final eclipse in Pisces after um, about 2 or 3 years of Pisces eclipse since 2024. So there's been a lot of Pisces energies, and this helps. Again, this is one of the last big Pisces astrological uh, aspects um, in terms of eclipses, because it's the final eclipse in the period in the cycle. So it helps us to release any kind of last elements of the old paradigm that are no longer resonant over the next 6 months until early 2027. So kind of releasing things into the misty seas, long-term karmic patterns, emotional baggage. So just helping, this all helps us to feel a lot lighter, more enlightened. Yeah, and at the same time, Mercury is opposite the eclipse in Virgo. So kind of you might expect there might be some unexpected messages. Kind of really, wow, that's what was happening. And adjustments to creative projects possible. So things that we say, all right, kind of a big impact at the end of this final eclipse at the end of August. And with Uranus square the eclipse, this in Gemini also indicates unexpected or perhaps shocking communications that might come forward. But still, we kind of very watery energies of the eclipse when Mars in Cancer as well. So it's kind of we're able to emotionally deal with all of this quite more easily than we would otherwise find, I would suggest. So as I say, there could be significant illuminations around a matter that clears the cobwebs from our eyes during that eclipse. Now, the final big thing I was looking at for this year was Venus's retrograde, which kind of has an impact all the way through September and halfway through December. Um, there's a lot of interesting things here. Uh, there's a kind of retrograde shadow period, and then the retrograde itself is 40 days long for Venus. It goes in that kind of fiery kind of period energy between the middle of Libra and the middle of Scorpio. So it could be again very dramatic between 22 Libra and 8 Scorpio. Now there's a lot of aspects occurring at the same time which are connected to this, and I'll make another video nearer the time for this, and hopefully more aspects I talk about today. So it's kind of fated events, apparently, in relationships and financially with Venus trining the North Node 3 times. It could be painful adjustments with Venus opposite Chiron 3 times in relationships, I say, and money. our own self-worth, and it squares Pluto, so there's going to be some big truths happening here. But the nicer aspect is it's sextile Jupiter 3 times. So Mercury as well is going to be retrograde, uh, you know, between uh, late Libra and late Scorpio. So it seems to me, as I say, what triggers this largely is about the Mercury conjunct Venus on the 6th, 7th, depending on where you are, of October at 8 Scorpio. So there's some key news or key remembrances, or perhaps somebody appearing from our past. Um, Something that can trigger some soul searching for the goddess of love, herself, Venus, who then uh, um, is just started a retrograde uh, in early Scorpio, and kind of causes her to search to see how she really feels about something. Some could be partnership, could be finances, could be reorganizing a budget, could be checking old messages and seeing what people actually said rather than what we think they said. Could be researching for old ideas, which could help us in the present, like with our relationships or finances. As a, we could, yeah, just help to kind of identify the some accurate information, which could lead to further painful splits, or it could deepen connections that are resonant. Um, so, reassessing what we value, and perhaps if we're not feeling it anymore, we may let stuff go. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of end of the year for these energies. So just briefly, there's major asteroids and some of the minor asteroids. I'll just talk through quite quickly. So Ceres, the nurturing kind of motherly asteroid there, um, moves quite rapidly to Cancer from August until May 2027. August 2026 to May 2027. So this emphasizes the importance in the second half of the year and the start of and the first half of next year, I would say, of a nurturing and secure and comforting home base, particularly during this split period. Supportive tribal network and families absolutely critical according to this astrological transit. As I said before, Black Moon Lilith is in Sagittarius for a long, long time, and there's the Sky Priestess there. You can see a Substack. You search for Sky Priestess, Black Moon Lilith in Sagittarius, find a lot more. So basically, being your own authority, not giving away your power, not outsourcing the meaning of anything, truthing everything, not adhering to external standards of morality. Being sovereign is really emphasized there. Now, Vesta, the keeper of the sacred flames, the Vestal virgins of Rome, here is moves again quite quickly to Aries for a long stay for starting in May, and this is going to be really emphasizing um, the sacred nature of you know our devotion to building a more resonant reality. Yeah, Vesta finally leaves Aries on 16th of February 2017. And Juno moves between Capricorn and Aquarius. It was very um, dedicated about strong kind of co-creations, partnerships, working well with other people. So Juno here switches between career, Capricornian matters of career and status, tradition, and Aquarian steadfast innovation. And so it's very interesting to see how what kind of innovations will emerge there in March and August and towards the end of the year. Now, also, Pallas Athena, the wise strategist, moves rapidly towards Aries to stay there for well, 11 months, should we say? Nearly almost, well, a long time, nearly a year, should we say? From 26th of April. So again, this is resonant in terms of trailblazing into a new paradigm with the Aries energies there. So seeking wise counsel and allies on how on our strategies for moving in and constructing and living in this light reality. We mentioned Chiron above, moving from Taurus to Eris. I would also briefly mention the asteroid Thereus, Thereus is in Libra all year. So this kind of indicates um, importance of staying high frequency and not allowing any open doors to any kind of anything that we don't want in our environment, and how people can kind of um have kind of more rebellious art forms and breaking free of um, systems that don't seem to work quite so well. I mean, there's a bit more to that. I mean, now again, I would recommend looking at the Sky's Priestess for that one. So here are the new moons and the full moons for next year. I'm hoping to figure out a way of putting this as a PDF, this uh, PowerPoint as a PDF, and then putting this under the video or make it easily accessible anyway. And here are the Mercury retrogrades, which are all in water, which is very interesting. To me, it's Pisces and then Cancer and then Scorpio. So this is all in a way relates to the Venus retrograde, I would say, where we're sorting through our emotions and how we feel about things, which can kind of undergo quite a few changes through the year. And then just a note there, it says Venus retrograde finishes at the same time as the Mercury retrograde, which finishes on the 13th of November. So it does seem that following Mercury and Venus's retrograde, which finishes in the middle of November, there's key realizations around such areas as intimate partners, financial affairs, and what we value. And between the middle of November, and the time Venus leaves her retrograde shadow in the middle of December, like key decisions and realizations will have been made in those areas. And that's it, really. That's my kind of overview of the what I see as the key aspects and the key astrological energies which can be used. These are not kind of things that are set in stone. They're just energies that are accessible, I would say, to use in any way that we wish. So I tried to present things in a high frequency kind of potential kind of manner without kind of ignoring other things that might be um, considered by others on the other side of the split. Yeah, so I hope you enjoy the year. Hope you enjoy the video. If you did enjoy it and you watched this far, I'm uh, very grateful. And thank you for your attention and everything. And yeah, please share this video. I mean, I hope that this video will reach um, many more people than previous videos. And we'll also be releasing a short video, short version, just to kind of um, make it a little bit more accessible, hopefully. Well, have a nice year.